Hello, everyone. My name is always Asmal. Welcome to Rush Week, episode 3, another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than climbing the corporate ladder. A reminder that the show will also be available on podcast and YouTube by tomorrow. If you are watching live, please drop a 1 in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves. Otherwise, we're going to have a very personal conversation. And drop a 2 in the comments if you're coming and watching the recording. My guest for today is Wadzanai Mabuto, chartered accountant, senior lecturer, published author, writer, and there's probably a few more titles, but I'm not going to go into all of that because otherwise we'll be here all day. Wadzi, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Wes. I'm really excited to be here.
That's great. That's great. It looks like we've got people commenting, so we know that people are watching.
Fantastic.
To come straight in, tell us your story. Where do you come from outside of work? Who is Wadzanai Mabuto?
So thank you and hello to your listeners and everybody who's there. I'm originally from Zimbabwe, but I always tell people that I've been in South Africa longer than I've been in Zimbabwe. So I'm like in this half-half where I'm too Zimbabwean to South African, but I'm too South African to be Zimbabwean. But I came when I was 19, and I did my undergrad and postgrad at UCT. And then thereafter, I then took a job at Investec to do my articles, my CA articles at Investec. And the reason why I did that was because I hated auditing. So I always knew what I did not like. And the tip and top in our days, I'm exposing my age now, we called it tip versus top. And it was still very new. Top was still very new. And I remember when I made that decision, well, Investec then accepted me. You can't just say, Investec, here I am. You have to go through interviews. But I was fortunate enough to have been selected as one of the 13 trainees. And I remember people were like, Wadzi, why are you doing that? You're going to be a half CA. And I was like, I don't care. Even if I'm a half CA, as long as I don't need to do auditing, it's fine. But funny enough, we still needed to do 6 months of internal audit. And that was, again, the one rotation that I had to repeat via simulation because I hated it. And I always reflect on people when they give me feedback. At the time, it was really hard to get that feedback. But at the time, I'll get feedback like, Wadzi, when you don't want to do something, you don't do it. It's like you just have a mental block. And it's something that I've had to learn to overcome. So like I've always had a mental block with auditing. And it then transpired even when I was rotating into auditing. But to answer the latter part of your question, who am I? I'm a mother of 3, 8-year-old, a 5.5, and a nearly 2-year-old. Married to an epidemiologist. No, it's quite a hectic. So this is a holiday. We're having this interview right now. It's like a holiday. I'm married to an epidemiologist, so he's a medical researcher. So we're polar opposites, but it works. It works like a charm. So yeah, that's basically who I am. Oh, and I am a senior lecturer. My full-time job is senior lecturing at the University of Johannesburg. And after I finished my articles at Investec, I then realized that I loved to talk. But I thought being a private banker would fulfill that need for me to talk. But I realized the type of talking that was required in banking was not my type of talking. I'm just like, I talk, So I went into lecturing, and there my students have no choice but to listen. So that's free. I only say that in jest, but I really enjoy it. I've been there. This is my 10th year at the University of Johannesburg, and I've really enjoyed it so far.
So I mean, you did articles at Investec, you studied to be a chartered accountant, you're a lecturer. I mean, people think, okay, she's a chartered accountant, she's a lecturer, there's numbers involved. Then you ended up writing 2 books, and none of it related to accounting. One, even a kiddies book. So How did you go from chartered accountant to writing a book and a kiddies book at that? So please tell us about that.
So funny enough, all my students always ask me that same question, asking me, ma'am, you're a CA, but why are you teaching? That's number one, to say you're going completely out of the conventional route, what most CAs go through. And then to also answer the second part of your question regarding how did I get from doing numbers as a CA to writing books. And I always say to people, whoever cares to listen, that every experience you go through matters. So the numbers matter. I actually wanted to show you, but my notebook is quite far away, that there's a lot of mathematical equations required to publish a book. You need to get the dimensions right. You need to get the manuscript right. You need to get your costing right. You need to identify what your cost drivers are. So it was so funny that because my husband knows that I really love creating stuff, that is what I'm naturally, I can do in my sleep. Like I can sleep 2 hours. Like literally this whole week, I'm actually releasing another series of kids' books. And this whole week I've been sleeping an average of 3 hours because I enjoy being creative. And then my husband then was just like, I need you to tap into your CA-ship. When you're now pricing the book, I need you to tap into it. And my husband knows very little about numbers. But I then was like, oh, okay, I can merge everything that I learned as a CA into what I'm doing right now as I don't know what to call myself, as a creative. And it really has worked. Small things like variable inputs, direct materials, all that stuff we parrot learned at high school. at varsity. So it's been a very interesting journey. So I've fortunately been able to merge those two disciplines. And yeah, so it's really been an interesting journey.
Talk to us about the books, each one separately, quickly, if you can. I don't know if you've got one of them there, so that we know.
I do. So the first book is I Have a Story to Tell. So the idea of this book came in April last year, where I wanted to write a book about myself. And I just thought, oh, that's a bit conceited. Who's going to read 200 pages about one person? And then I got the idea to write the book about other people's stories. And then I thought, oof, again, you know how we don't like being rejected. So I put up a call on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is where I'm most visible. And literally, I had like 40 people sign up. I had to actually close the applications. And then I had interviews with everybody. And then I whittled down to 19 people who are in the book. So this book started in April, but I only then published it in September. And then when I finished that one, I was like, oh, okay. So we were homeschooling our kids. They're going back to school, by the way, but for that period, we were homeschooling them.
As soon as possible.
Yeah, as soon as possible, please. And part of the curriculum was to teach the kids Shona. So Shona is the native language that we speak in Zimbabwe. And my kids they would roll their eyes when it came to Shona, because number one, there's nothing on television that makes you believe there's something of worth to feel proud of your identity. And number two, all the material just looks like a dictionary. So I then went to my kids, let's create a book. And I put their names on the book. The first two kids, my first Shona words with Anashe and Takuzwa. And literally, then we created this 32 page book. And then after that, a lot of people were then coming to me and saying, please can you do one in Sesotho, in Setswana, Sepedi, isiXhosa, isiZulu, Yoruba, which is in Nigeria, Kiswahili, which is spoken in almost 8 African countries. And then I literally became a community project. I would get various people to translate one book, and I'd make sure at least two or three people look at it. And literally, I don't have all the copies because some of them are sold out at the moment, but literally then it turned out to be about 13 books translated into
different languages. I mean, that's so important, because it's just somebody, to have something to look forward to in your own language is just, I mean, it's not always out there, especially that's amazing.
Absolutely. And for me, I feel it's important that my kids learn not only their language, but the languages of others, because I think communication breaks down barriers. And there are a lot of barriers. We're living in a very, barricaded world where it's like my space, your space. But I think if we can speak each other's languages, I even translated to Afrikaans. And the person who's translated to Afrikaans to me has been so amazing. And she's currently doing the voiceovers for the Afrikaans platform, the online platform. We've converted this. The Shona one is already online. isiZulu is also online. A colleague of mine did the voiceovers, and the Afrikaans one is about to get online as well. And when people volunteer, because I won't pretend to be able to voice over, because I voice over Shona, but I can't voice over Afrikaans. I would really, and any other, I'm learning. But I wanted to respect each and every language, and give people that identity. I remember a conversation I had with somebody. I don't know, the Chivenda one is sold out. Somebody bought 5 books at once, and he literally said to me, "Thank you so much for making me believe that it's okay for me to speak Chivenda, and giving me something that I can be like, this is from us." And that was really heartwarming. And I've realized that there are many couples that come from different regions. So I had a Xhosa person married to a Shona person who said, "Thank you so much. We've got Xhosa and Shona." And we can teach our kids both, so they know that none is.
And I mean, you talk about that identity thing. I also think, like, when you talk and thinking in a different language, in a different language, it's almost sometimes like you think differently. Also,
Yes.
like some expressions can't be translated easily. So, I mean, there's never really a good enough translation. So, I mean, you definitely do that, yeah. Just a reminder to everyone watching that please, if you have any questions for Wadzi, please put it in the chat now. We'll deal with all the questions towards the end. So, Wadzi, just moving on a little bit. As a lecturer, I'm assuming you get to talk to all of your students while they are there in your class. If you had the opportunity to speak to them now while they were at work, what words of wisdom would you have for them as young professionals out in the workplace?
Oh, while they're at work, that's a very interesting question you asked, because the shift from being at university to going to work is a huge one. I would just say to a student who's probably on their first day of a job to just say, breathe, number one. And number two, this is your new reality. You've come from a place where you were really flexible and you could do whatever you wanted with your time, but now your time belongs to the company that pays your salary. So you have to change a few things in your life to build the muscle to be able to stay awake from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. I always say to my students while they're in class, when they fall asleep after 10 minutes, I'm like, guys, like they'll fall asleep in front of me. Maybe I'm boring, I don't know. And
no, I think it's a general student problem.
It's literally a human problem. Paying attention is a human problem.
I slept in a lot of auditing classes, I can remember that.
Exactly, you can relate. So I'd say to them, look, if you can't even keep up for 40 minutes, there's going to be a time where you literally have to be awake and look like you're being productive. And I say that with the utmost sincerity and humility to say, be productive. Don't just look like you're being productive. And yeah, embrace the change. It's going to take some time to develop that muscle. It took me 3 years to develop that muscle to be like, okay, now I'm at work. I think I still sometimes I'm like, I'm at work. Oh, I need to communicate effectively to my boss. I need to make sure that my boss believes that, okay, my colleagues, okay, I need to be aware of my surroundings. And all those things are important. But be kind to yourself. You will learn.
I always tell people it takes like 6 months to settle in. Like, don't expect to be flying on your second day. It takes time.
Absolutely. It does take time. It's like, I always use the analogy of a cake. After you've baked a cake and you leave it out to cool, the cake just stands there. So that's exactly what happens when you've just graduated. It's like you're a cake in obscurity. Nobody really knows what you're about. So you're in the office, people are looking at this cake and they're like, what's this cake doing? And then finally, people realize, oh, we see your value. You're an apple cake. Okay, so let's ice you up. Let's put you on display. So you have to be okay with that period. Like, as you say, the 6 months where people are just like, who are you? You're taking up space, please. You just be okay with that period. where you're in obscurity.
Moving on a little bit from that, it seems to me that you chose the road less traveled in your life. I mean, you did. I mean, yes, you're a chartered accountant. Then you chose articles outside audit, and the young professionals might not appreciate it, but at that time when it was tip or top, there was probably like 4 article clerks doing top in that year, or even at Investec there must have been like 3 people, and they were all in Joburg, and nobody was in Cape Town. It was really a fledgling industry at the time. So, I mean, you're taking the road less travel. Are you actively choosing to go against the grain?
That's actually another funny question, because I was actually reflecting on it, even as I am right now in academia. The conventional route is for me to then do my PhD and then write published articles. Although I do that, I'm more affiliated in that writing the books, creating my own platforms, trying to build myself. But having said that, the research that I do helps me in doing stuff like this. So like I was saying to you, the second part of the book is actually the sentences. How do you construct sentences in Shona, isiZulu, Afrikaans, isiXhosa? And I had to do research. So research is just simply searching again. So the skills that I learned through doing my master's, through writing a few articles, were important. So luckily I'm a bit maturer now, where I realize sometimes you have to do the things that you don't like to get to the place where you want to be. So, but to answer your question, I'm not really interested right now in pursuing a PhD right now. I know when the time is right, I will do a PhD on something, because I've seen a lot of advice on PhD. Do it on something that you are passionate about.
Yes.
And I want to do my PhD on
as well.
passionate about. So I'm going to be writing articles as it leads up to that. So behind the scenes, I do academic stuff. It's just I don't really post about it a lot. Yeah.
No, agreed. I mean, even I suppose when you start your articles, I mean, you have to go through that article process. And if you do but once you get to a certain level in your career, I also think it's trying to follow your passion, because you're going to be there the whole day. There's no point being miserable.
Absolutely.
Tell me,
and like, yeah. No worries.
Sorry, you were saying?
Oh, I was just saying, to quote Steve Jobs, who just basically said, the world that you see now was created by people no different from us. And sometimes we get so fixated in trying to follow UAs, to follow other people, that we don't create stuff for ourselves. So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say.
So following on from that, what advice do you have for someone who's thinking of doing things a little bit differently? Maybe not the same way that you did, but doing things differently, but maybe be afraid of the judgment.
Judgment is gonna come. I'm sure doing CA-ship, judgment came. My family didn't understand what CA was. Why are you going back to school when you've just gotten your honors degree? Why are you going back for another year? Why are you going to a job that doesn't pay as much right now? And now why are you going to UJ? Why are you leaving the corporate? It's something you have to be okay with as you pursue your journey in life. And I don't say that I'm not going to listen to anybody and I'm just going to do me. Listen to advice. If people are brave enough to speak to you in your face, because a lot of people, we comment about each other behind their backs. But if someone is brave enough to say, okay, Wadzi, I hear that you want to do a children's book, but you haven't finished your CTA. Okay, why not for now? Just focus, because when you become a CA, the world is your oyster. You don't even need to introduce yourself. SAICA and all the other professional bodies have done so well in painting us in a manner that is like, we are quality. And also we are quality, we're trained. The training is gruesome. So I would say to somebody who wants to fulfill that is to say, create time as you are on that journey. We've got a lot of time. Ask Mr. Netflix. If you sit down and you realize how much time you sit watching Netflix, you'd realize that there's more than enough time for you to jot down and write down things that you need to do. You create time. Or you reallocate. You can't create time, sorry. Reallocate some of the things that you prioritize. Do the things that you need to do so that you can do the things that you want to do. And as I love what you said initially, where you said at a certain point in your career, you are now free to do what you want to do. Now, but I see a lot of people wanting to live a life like myself right now and not realize that I've gone through the trenches. I've gone through the trenches to get to the point where I have flexibility, to get to the point where I can do a lot of things at the same time. So I'd say embrace the season that you're in and take it a step at a time, but use your time effectively. I'm one who guards my time very jealously, and I make sure that if I am doing work, I'm doing work. And if I'm relaxing, I'm relaxing. And yeah, I try and weed out a few things that take unnecessary time out of my schedule.
I don't see any questions coming through, so I think you've been answering them. You've been giving them all the answers that they need, which is perfect. Just in terms of
fantastic.
Any last few words from you? Anything that we didn't discuss? Something that's important to you? Something that you're passionate about? Chat to us about it in closing.
So I'm very passionate about self-development of the individual. As technology advances rapidly, you can almost tell that the human being is deteriorating rapidly because we're so dependent on technology. I remember one day my daughter was like, "Mama, why do I need to learn how to spell? If I just go on Google and I just put first three letters, it spells it for me." And that was a very valid question. So I had to explain to her, he said, yes, Dr. Google, Uncle Google can answer all these questions, but you need to know how to find those. So I'm really passionate about self-development. I'm currently building a program at UJ to create a curriculum that's going to assist our students to help themselves, to equip themselves to deal with life by first of all mastering themselves and then learning how to identify other people and their strengths and their weaknesses. So that's still early stages. So probably will only be done in about 3-4 months. So yeah.
Okay. And your books, where can people get them?
So my books are currently all on Amazon, in the Amazon marketplace. And also the kids' books are available from my online store, thegifted.co.za/online-store. And the kids' books are also available on ethnickids.africa. So sometimes if you can outsource something, rather outsource to get some of the admin.
We can't be good at everything. So sometimes
absolutely. That's true.
Wadzi, thank you so much for your time. Just a reminder to everyone that the show will be available on YouTube and podcast. If you are watching it on YouTube or the podcast and you feel that this has provided value to you, please don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get automatically notified. The next episode will be tomorrow. Wadzi, thanks again so much for sharing your time with us. And thank you to all of you for watching. Thank you very much for joining us for another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat. Bye-bye.